On Christmas Eve in Southern California, a large family gathered inside a modest suburban home for a late-night celebration. The house was full, but not crowded. Warm lights glowing through the windows as relatives talked over one another, and children moved through the rooms, restless with excitement. It was nearly midnight, and the night felt calm, familiar, and routine for a holiday gathering that had happened many times before. Just before 11:30 p.m., there was a knock at the front door. When the door opened, the person standing outside looked like someone who belonged there. He was dressed head to toe in a Santa Claus suit, red fabric trimmed in white, the kind of costume that would normally draw laughter or smiles on a night like this. There was no immediate reason to be cautious. The family assumed he was part of the celebration, or at worst, a harmless surprise. The moment the door opened fully, that assumption collapsed. Without speaking, the man reached into the Santa suite and pulled out a handgun. He fired immediately. The first shots echoed through the house, followed almost instantly by screams. People scattered in different directions, some running deeper into the home, others frozen in place, struggling to understand what was happening. The man moved forward, firing repeatedly, shooting at anyone who crossed his path. The noise, the confusion, and the speed of the attack left no time to react. In seconds, the home that had been filled with conversation and music turned into chaos. Family members tried to escape through hallways and back rooms as the man continued firing, his movements controlled and deliberate. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the gunfire stopped. Instead of leaving, the man turned back toward the front of the house. He focused on a large, gift-wrapped package he had carried inside with him. It looked like a present meant for the family, but it was anything but that. Inside was a modified device designed to spray fuel. When he activated it, gasoline poured out, coating the walls, furniture, and floors throughout the interior of the home. Within moments, the house was saturated. A flame ignited. The explosion was powerful enough to shake nearby homes. Fire tore through the interior of the house, spreading rapidly as thick smoke poured into the street. People inside were trapped by flames and crushing heat. Neighbors, awakened by the blast and the sound of screaming, ran outside and began calling 911 as the house burned. By the time emergency crews arrived, the fire was already out of control. Firefighters were unable to enter immediately due to the intensity of the blaze. When the fire was finally contained, the damage left behind made it clear that few inside could have survived. 9 people were dead. 3 others were severely injured. The man in the Santa suit was gone. As police began their investigation, they quickly identified the suspect as someone closely connected to the family. He was the ex-husband of one of the victims, and their divorce had been finalized just 1 week earlier. Investigators soon realized the attack was not spontaneous. It had been carefully planned, down to the costume, the weapons, and the materials used to start the fire. Police uncovered evidence that the man had prepared multiple escape plans. He had rented vehicles and mapped out routes that suggested he intended to flee the area and possibly the country. But those plans were never carried out. During the attack, the fire had severely burned him. Despite his injuries, he managed to leave the scene, change out of the Santa suit, and drive to his brother's home in a nearby neighborhood. In the early hours of Christmas Day, police found him dead inside the house from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The Santa suit he discarded was later discovered to be booby-trapped. Investigators determined that if anyone had attempted to move it, it would have ignited a fire and discharged hundreds of rounds of ammunition. Additional weapons and materials were found at his home, further confirming how methodically the attack had been prepared. The case became one of the most disturbing crimes ever associated with Christmas Eve, not because of mystery or unanswered questions, but because of how ordinary the night had begun and how easily the person responsible had been welcomed inside. On Christmas Day in 1929, the Lawson family lived on a small tobacco farm along Brook Cove Road in rural North Carolina. The area was quiet and isolated, made up of dirt roads, scattered farms, and long stretches of trees. For years, Charles Lawson had worked that land as a tenant farmer, saving enough money to finally buy the farm outright. To neighbors, the Lawsons were not wealthy, but they were doing better than most families in the area. Just days before Christmas, Charles took his wife and children into town. He bought them new clothes. He paid for a professional family portrait. For a working-class rural family in 1929, it was an unusual expense, but not impossible. At the time, no one questioned it. On the afternoon of December 25th, Charles Lawson stepped outside with his two youngest daughters, Carrie and Maybelle. They were heading toward a nearby relative's house. Instead of joining them, Charles waited near the tobacco barn, watching the path they would take across the yard. When the girls came within range, he raised a shotgun and fired. Afterward, he made sure they were dead. He carried their bodies into the barn and laid them down. Charles then walked back toward the house. His wife, Fanny, was standing on the porch. He shot her where she stood. The sound of the gunshot carried through the house. Inside, their teenage daughter, Marie, screamed. The two young boys, James and Raymond, tried to hide. Charles moved through the house, killing them one by one. The baby, Mary Lou, was killed last. When it was over, Charles Lawson left the house and walked into the nearby woods. Several hours later, he took his own life beneath a tree. People who had already begun to gather near the property heard the final gunshot echo through the area. Only one child survived. Arthur, the eldest son, was 19 years old. His father had sent him on an errand earlier that day. When Arthur returned, the rest of his family was already dead. When the bodies were discovered, investigators noticed something unsettling. Each victim had been positioned carefully, their arms crossed, rocks placed beneath their heads. Charles had left behind letters to his parents. Footprints in the snow circled the tree where he died, suggesting he had been pacing for some time before pulling the trigger. The case stunned the community. There was no robbery, no argument anyone had witnessed, no clear explanation for why a man would methodically kill his entire family on Christmas Day. Almost immediately, speculation began. Some believed Charles Lawson had suffered a head injury months earlier that altered his mental state. Others pointed to financial stress, but none of those theories fully explained the planning, the timing, or the way the bodies were arranged. Years later, another theory emerged, one far more disturbing. It suggested that Charles had been abusing his daughter, Marie, and that she may have been pregnant. According to later accounts, Marie had confided in a close friend shortly before Christmas. Family members would later claim that Fanny had suspected something was wrong long before the murders. There was no trial, no confession, no way to prove the motive with certainty. What remained was a family wiped out in a single afternoon, a crime scene frozen in time, and a mystery that has never been fully resolved. In the years that followed, the Lawson home became a tourist attraction. Visitors walked through the rooms where the murders occurred. A cake Marie had baked on Christmas Day was displayed inside, eventually placed under glass when people began taking pieces of it as souvenirs. The story entered local folklore, then American history. Songs were written, books were published, explanations were offered, but none of them could undo what happened on that farm on Christmas Day in 1929, when a family posed for a photograph, dressed in new clothes, unaware it would be the last image taken of them together. On Christmas Eve in 2007, the Anderson family home sat at the end of a gated driveway near Carnation, Washington. The area was rural and quiet, surrounded by trees and farmland, far enough from town that visitors were rare. Inside the house, Wayne and Judy Anderson were preparing for the holiday. Judy was wrapping Christmas gifts. Wayne moved through the house, unaware that the evening was about to take a turn no one could undo. That afternoon, a pickup truck pulled up to the gate. Inside were Joseph McEnroe and Michelle Anderson, Judy and Wayne's youngest daughter. Michelle had grown up in the house. She knew the layout. She knew where people stood, where they moved, and how isolated the property was. The two armed themselves before entering. Once inside, they split up. McEnroe distracted Judy as she worked on presents. Michelle went after her father. When she tried to shoot him, her gun jammed. Without hesitation, McEnroe stepped in and shot Wayne Anderson. He then shot Judy. Both were killed inside their own home. Afterward, the two dragged the bodies outside. They cleaned the house carefully. Blood was wiped away. Furniture was straightened. When they were finished, they waited. Later that evening, Scott Anderson arrived with his wife Erica and their two young children, Olivia and Nathan. They had come to spend Christmas Eve with family, unaware that Wayne and Judy were already dead. As Scott entered the house, Michelle shot him multiple times. Erica was shot next. Despite her injuries, she managed to reach a cordless phone and dial 911. The call connected, but only briefly. Dispatchers heard what sounded like arguing or background noise, something they mistook for a gathering. Before Erica could say more, McEnroe tore the batteries out of the phone and smashed it on the floor. McEnroe then shot Erica again, killing her. The two children were still inside the house. According to testimony, Michelle insisted the children could not be left alive. She claimed they would be traumatized witnesses. McEnroe complied. He shot 5-year-old Olivia and 3-year-old Nathan. All 6 victims were shot in the head. In total, 16 shots were fired. Police were dispatched in response to the 911 call, but when they arrived, the gate to the property was locked. Unable to access the house and hearing nothing further, officers left the scene. The bodies remained undiscovered for 2 days. On December 26th, Judy Anderson's close friend and co-worker, Linda Thiele, became concerned when Judy did not show up for work. She drove to the house and looked through a window. Inside, she saw bodies on the floor. At first, she believed she was seeing Wayne and Judy. She called 911 immediately. When detectives arrived and entered the home, they realized the bodies were Scott and Erica's. Wayne and Judy were found outside. While investigators were still at the scene, Michelle Anderson and Joseph McEnroe drove back to the property. They were brought in for questioning. Eventually, both confessed to the murders. Prosecutors told jurors the motive was money. Michelle believed she had been mistreated by her family and claimed her brother owed her money. What began as resentment ended with the deaths of 3 generations of the same family. Both were charged with 6 counts of aggravated first-degree murder. Years later, McEnroe confessed again in an effort to avoid execution. In 2015, a jury found him guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to life in prison, spared the death penalty due to a statewide moratorium. Michelle Anderson was convicted the following year and also sentenced to life in prison. Today, the house near Carnation stands as the site of one of Washington State's most disturbing crimes, not because of mystery or unanswered questions, but because the violence was planned, deliberate, and carried out against a family that never saw it coming. Alright guys, that'll be it for today. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss next week's upload. I post new stories every week, so there's always something coming. And before you go, I'd love to hear your thoughts on these cases, so feel free to leave a comment below. As always, I hope you and your loved ones have a Merry Christmas. Take care of each other, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.